Welcome back to our videos on the Leadership Nexus Assessment and Role-Aligned Leadership. In the previous video, we took a deeper look at the types of questions that successful leaders use within their roles. In this video, we're going to examine first the role of risk at each level, and then we will move into a more difficult topic, what negative forms of leadership look like and how they impact an organization. Why talk about risk in the context of leadership? Quite simply, it's impossible to avoid risk when the actions of a leader impact so many different people. For example, what do we risk when we think about changing a policy or a process? What do we risk when we think about implementing a radically new idea? What do we risk when we ask a difficult question instead of solving a problem ourselves? Just as the roles and questions of each level differ, so do the risks incurred by leaders at each level. If we return to the military example for just a moment, let's ask, what does a private risk when making a decision on the front line in the heat of battle? And how does that risk differ from a decision made by a general in the same battle? A decision made by a private is likely to most directly affect his or her own life and the lives of the individuals around them, their fellow squad members. The risk is fairly contained to these individuals. This decision could directly affect the outcome of a particular part of a battle, but not often the outcome of an entire battle. A general, however, who makes a decision in the heat of the same battle risks the lives of all the troops under their command. A single strategic decision can put at risk an entire platoon, company, or battalion. While the general's life is usually not at stake, he or she is risking the lives of a great many soldiers, as well as the potential outcome of an entire war. This is the nature of risk. The closer a leader is to the core function of an organization, the more personal the risk. The higher the level of leadership, the more systemic that risk becomes. A private risks his or her own life and the lives of his or her buddies. A general risks the lives of an entire battalion. What is important to understand about this concept of risk is that all risk is important, but the nature of the risk differs. And why is this important? Because human beings are risk-calculating creatures. We are always measuring risk, even when we aren't aware that we are. Level 1 transactional leadership is about accuracy and stability, creating and maintaining a stable, efficient workplace with understandable rules and reasonable policies and procedures. A Level 1 leader runs the greatest risk by making task mistakes and by failing to accomplish these tasks in a timely and efficient manner. Transactional leaders often feel vulnerable when their visibility goes up, because this is precisely when task mistakes can most easily be seen. A leader whose visibility rises because of outstanding work can also be noticed when something goes wrong. As coaches, we frequently run into this when talking with frontline leaders who say something like, "I just want to keep my head down and do a good job. I don't want any fuss over what I do. I just do my work and I do it well. But heaven help me if I make a mistake. It's like the world came to an end." This is not only a statement of pride in doing a good job. It's also a recognition of the risk inherent when that good job may not be good enough, because the bottom line is that this is how they can lose their job. Effective Level 1 transactional leaders recognize this risk of visibility and are able to work with it and with their teammates to produce quality outcomes with a minimum of errors. It can be highly motivating to some individuals. For others, it can be overwhelming. Level 2 managerial leadership is about building effective teams. Many first-time managerial leaders are promoted because of their technical abilities, so their struggles often lie in developing their teams and team members. Managerial leaders who move up from within a team face a twofold problem. How do I stop being a friend and become a boss? And how do I learn how to build my team, a skill that is very different from being part of the team and just doing a good job? The managerial leader's highest risk lies in the areas of team building, accountability, development, and effective use of resources. All of these are crucial to the development of a high-performing team. Without the development of the team, the work is at risk. A great example of this is found in the manager who was promoted from within and had an existing group of friends on the team. Once in the new role, if the manager maintains those friendships as they were, talk of favoritism and unfairness often emerge, and staff cooperation and teamwork can drop. Adapting to a role that is different from that of team member and friend can make creating a clear set of boundaries and holding staff members accountable difficult. But without this adaptation, the manager cannot create a high-performing team. The risk is twofold: risk not being seen as one of us, and risk not holding team members accountable and developing the team. Level 3 tactical leadership is about balance. Since tactical leaders are generally responsible for larger sets of teams, they are most vulnerable to a lack of adaptability, creativity, or confidence. Knowing how to balance competing needs, competing budgets, competing agendas, these are the things that keep them up at night. Risk at this level tends to be less personal and more systemic or programmatic. Most tactical leaders will not lose their jobs if a single initiative fails, but the company or its reputation can be at risk with the failure of this same initiative. And over time, the tactical leader's reputation and job will be at risk if there are too many failures. A leader who can maintain this balance while keeping the boss satisfied and direct reports engaged is a truly valuable commodity. Recognizing that this is the area of greatest risk enables the Level 3 leader to build the skills necessary to pull it off. Level 4 strategic leadership is about strategy. A Level 4 strategic leader is deeply committed to the long-term development of the organization, so the ability to accurately see into the future is vital. This is the strategic leader's greatest risk: a lack of vision. If the leader's vision is correct, the result is growth, viability, and financial stability. If this vision is wrong, the result can be organizational failure. Given the scale of decision-making at this level, a strategic leader must have the courage to act, often with less than full information. Given the scale of decision-making at this level, a strategic leader must have the courage to act, often with less than full information. Returning again to our military example, when Dwight D. Eisenhower planned for the D-Day invasion during World War II, he could see all of the pieces on the chessboard, not only his own, but also those of Germany. His understanding of how and when all of those pieces needed to move, and how to keep all of the coalition leaders invested, led him and the Allies to a tremendous victory, one that changed the direction of the war. The personal risk that General Eisenhower faced was very different from the risk of one of the troops landing on the beaches of Normandy. His life was not at risk, but his reputation as a commanding general most certainly was, as were the lives of all of his troops. This type of risk occurs every day in business. Level 4 strategic leaders read the tea leaves of the future and make decisions that risk everything. This is what they do. Level 5 transformational leadership is about game-changing. Transformational leaders embrace change and the upheaval that comes from it. They develop a strength of will that spills over to everyone who comes into contact with them, and they believe in themselves and the people who work with them. The risks associated with sailing in uncharted waters, in trying new technologies, in creating new industries or a new organization are very high. It takes an individual with a strong sense of self, as well as a fundamental belief in the correctness of the vision, to pull this off successfully. The ambiguity inherent in associated risks in these new approaches is often enough to keep talented visionaries from moving to this game-changing position. But when it is managed well, it's a sight to behold. When Christopher Columbus set out for the New World, he trusted a level of vision that was well beyond that of other travelers of the day. He not only transformed an understanding of how to reach other parts of the world, he also demonstrated the power of setting forth into the unknown. He completed this while facing incredible risks, and it led to amazing results. Steve Jobs accomplished the same feat in his uncompromising approach to technological innovation. In his drive toward excellence, he transformed not only computers, but also the music industry, the telephone industry, and the movie business. But we don't have to be a Steve Jobs or a Christopher Columbus to be a level 5 leader within our own organizations. Transformational leaders develop an ability to look beyond their own limits and the limits of everyone around them. They are able to see how big pieces fit together, how changing one part of the system can lead to inevitable changes in the rest of it. What is at risk at this level is everything. All of the project financing, the jobs of all the people who have signed on to the vision, the reputation for being a transformational leader. All of these things are at risk. But for the transformational leader, it is precisely this risk, this shoving of all the chips into the pot, that creates the excitement that fuels their passion. As I mentioned earlier, understanding the risk inherent in each leadership level is important because risk is a consistent factor in decision making. The closer a leader is to the core function of an organization, the more personal the risk. The higher the level of leadership, the more systemic that risk becomes. Now let's shift into a very different component of leadership, the dark side. When a leader is functioning out of some of the more negative aspects of their personality, they can have an immediate, powerful effect on the people around them. Just as we saw in our discussion about risk, the impact of these darker behaviors affects different groups of individuals. The negative use of level 1 transactional leadership is pure intimidation. Intimidators are focused on getting what they need or want and will use power and control to bully and manipulate those around them. This is particularly damaging in the workplace because it destroys teamwork and camaraderie. Examples of intimidation include using anger to influence a coworker's behavior, yelling at team members when something is not going right, using personal power to change work assignments, issuing threats toward a coworker who doesn't conform. As coaches, consultants, and counselors, we have an obligation to talk with our clients about these kinds of behaviors when we see them or hear about them. This can make for an uncomfortable conversation, but nonetheless, it is one we must sometimes initiate. Asking questions about the negative effects these behaviors are having on coworkers can potentially open up very productive discussions and lead to powerful insights and behavioral change. When level 2 managerial leaders behave in a negative way, they become petty dictators, individuals who rule a small kingdom but with an iron fist. Petty dictators are masters of control because they know what they want and how to get it. Examples of petty dictator behaviors include retaliation, threats, aggression, and passive-aggressive behavior. The level 3 tactical leader, operating out of the destructive side, functions as a tyrant. Tyrants rule through fear, and they have the position to instill that fear in everyone below them. They use their accumulated power to move up in the organizational hierarchy by identifying weaknesses in the system around them and exploiting those weaknesses to their advantage. Tyrants are constantly looking for ways to expand and maintain the power they have accumulated. Examples of these behaviors include intimidation, veiled threats, aggressive confrontations. A negative level 4 strategic leader behaves like a despot. Despots refine their ability to achieve high levels of success through the unencumbered and unrestrained use of power. They are very successful at clearing the field of potential rivals and succeed at the expense of their employees and their companies. Examples of despot behaviors include creating a dog-eat-dog environment, ruthlessness, no tolerance for mistakes, promotion of those who support decisions without question. A negative level 5 transformational leader functions as a megalomaniac. A megalomaniac is an intensely charismatic individual who can seize the spotlight at will to bend the world to his or her desires. Because of their ability to use the system to their advantage, they are able to move large numbers of people in their direction, even when that direction is destructive. Examples of megalomaniac behaviors include no sense of right or wrong, only what works for them individually, revenge on perceived enemies, intense focus on their vision of reality regardless of the situational facts. Keep in mind that all of us, on occasion, act out of our worst selves. The important thing about leadership is to keep those occasions to a minimum, stop them as quickly as possible, and repair any damage that has been done to staff or fellow team members. In fact, doing so is a hallmark of strong, healthy leadership. Thank you for your participation in this video of the Leadership Nexus. In the next video, we will be taking a deeper dive into the full report workbook, examining how to use it effectively with your candidates and clients. See you then.